The night sky erupted in flames as Thera's escape pod pierced Earth's atmosphere. Warning signals blared through the cramped cabin as the vessel's remaining stabilizers failed. The proud warrior princess of the Valerian Empire gripped her controls, violet blood trickling from a wound on her temple. Her royal armor, once gleaming with the bioluminescent patterns of her people, now bore the scars of her desperate flight from home. The treacherous mountains of Colorado rushed up to meet her. Thera fought the controls until the last moment, but the pod was too damaged. The impact sent her crashing through a dense forest, leaving a trail of broken trees and scattered debris before coming to rest in a snow-covered clearing. Miles away, Nathan Parker's quiet evening was interrupted by what looked like a falling star. Through the window of his remote cabin, he watched it streak across the sky, too low and too bright to be natural. After years of military service as a combat medic, followed by self-imposed isolation in the mountains, Nathan had learned to trust his instincts. Something was wrong. He grabbed his emergency kit, a flashlight, and his old service pistol. The crisp mountain air bit at his face as he stepped outside, his breath forming clouds in the darkness. The crash site wasn't hard to find, a path of destruction led straight to it, the snow around the alien vessel steaming from its heat. Nathan approached cautiously, years of training evident in his measured steps. The pod's design was like nothing he'd ever seen, its metallic surface covered in strange, shifting patterns that seemed to pulse with faint light. A section of the hull had been torn open by the impact, revealing the interior. That's when he saw her. The alien was humanoid but clearly not human. Her skin was a pale lavender, marked with intricate patterns that glowed faintly in the darkness. She lay unconscious, still strapped into what appeared to be a pilot's seat, her features noble and striking despite the injuries she'd sustained. Nathan's medical training kicked in. He checked for immediate threats, no fires, no obvious hazardous materials. The alien woman was breathing, though her respirations were quick and shallow. Her skin felt cool to the touch, much cooler than a human's would be. Well, he muttered to himself, guess I'm breaking my no visitors policy. As he worked to free her from the wreckage, her eyes fluttered open. They were entirely silver, with no visible pupils, yet somehow managed to convey both pain and fierce determination. She spoke, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance that seemed to vibrate in Nathan's chest. "Stay back, human," she commanded in perfect English, though her accent was strange and musical. She tried to move but winced in pain. Nathan kept his voice calm and professional. "You're injured. I'm a medic. Let me help you." She laughed, a sound both beautiful and bitter. "I am Thera, first warrior of the Valerian Empire. I don't need protection from a primitive species." "Primitive or not," Nathan replied evenly, "you've got 3 broken ribs, a concussion, and what looks like significant blood loss. Your choice, stay here and freeze, or let this primitive help you somewhere warm." Thera's silver eyes narrowed, studying him. The proud set of her jaw reminded Nathan of wounded soldiers he'd treated, fighters who hated showing weakness. Finally, she gave a slight nod. "If you betray me," she warned, "you'll learn why entire star systems fear the Valerian Empire." Nathan couldn't help but smile slightly as he carefully helped her from the wreckage. "Lady, I left civilization because I got tired of people threatening me. Now, are you going to let me treat those wounds, or would you prefer to keep bleeding on my jacket?" As he guided her through the snow toward his cabin, supporting most of her weight, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that his life of solitude was about to become much more complicated. What he didn't know was that this proud, wounded alien warrior would not only challenge everything he thought he knew about the universe but would also force him to confront the past he'd been hiding from. Behind them, the crashed pod systems finally failed, its pulsing lights fading to darkness. Above, the stars continued their eternal dance, indifferent to the momentous meeting that had just occurred beneath them, a meeting that would eventually send ripples across the galaxy. Dawn painted the snow-covered mountains in shades of pink and gold as Thera watched from the cabin's window. A week had passed since her crash, and her wounds were healing faster than Nathan had expected, a benefit of Valerian physiology. She flexed her hand, observing how the bioluminescent patterns beneath her skin pulsed with the movement. "Your atmospheric pressure is insufferable," she announced as Nathan entered the main room, carrying firewood. "And your medical technology is barely beyond the Stone Age." Nathan stacked the wood beside the fireplace with methodical precision. "Yet here you are, healing quite nicely with our primitive methods." Thera turned to face him, her silver eyes reflecting the morning light. "You still don't understand what's coming, do you? The people hunting me won't stop. When they find me, and they will, your whole planet will be at risk." "Then maybe you should tell me what we're up against," Nathan replied, straightening up. "You've been here a week, eaten my food, used my medical supplies, and all I know is that you're running from something." Thera's luminescent patterns flickered with agitation. She crossed the room with fluid grace, despite her healing injuries. "You want the truth? I was heir to the Valerian Empire, which spans 3 galaxies. My father's general, Vrax, staged a coup. He killed my father, tried to kill me, and now controls our fleet of warships, each capable of reducing a planet to ash." She expected to see fear in Nathan's eyes. Instead, he met her gaze steadily, his expression thoughtful. "And you crashed here while escaping?" "Yes," she admitted. "I never." She paused, struggling with the words. "I never thought I'd need help from anyone, especially not a human." Nathan moved to his communications equipment, old military gear he'd kept maintained out of habit. "These warships of yours, they have energy signatures? Radio frequencies they use?" Thera watched him with growing curiosity. "Yes, but your technology couldn't possibly." "I spent 15 years in special operations before I came here," Nathan interrupted, making adjustments to his equipment. "The last 5 were with a unit so classified most of the military doesn't know it exists. We track things governments pretend don't exist." He glanced up at her. "Things that sometimes fell from the sky." For the first time, Thera looked at her human protector with new eyes. The quiet competence, the strategic questions, the way he moved, she'd mistaken his calm for simplicity, but there were depths here she hadn't recognized. "You've encountered aliens before," she said. It wasn't a question. "Let's just say you're not the first visitor I've helped," Nathan replied. "Though you're definitely the most royal." A sound like distant thunder rolled across the mountains. Thera's patterns flashed in alarm. "They're here. A scout ship, at least." Nathan was already moving, pulling equipment from hidden compartments in the walls. "Your people have thermal tracking?" "Yes, but..." "Then we need to move. Now." He tossed her a pack he'd prepared days ago. "The caves under the mountain are lined with minerals that block heat signatures. I've spent years mapping them." Thera caught the pack, surprised by his preparedness. "You knew this would happen?" "I knew something would happen. It always does." He checked his weapons with practiced efficiency. "Your pride going to let you follow my lead? Because if not, we're both dead." Thera thought of her father, of how his own pride had made him blind to Vrax's betrayal until it was too late. She thought of her people's dismissal of a primitive species, and how that arrogance had led them to underestimate so many potential allies. "Lead on, Nathan Parker," she said softly. "Show me what humans can do." They slipped out the back of the cabin just as the scout ship's engines became visible through the clouds. Nathan moved through the snow with surprising stealth, choosing paths that kept them under tree cover. Thera followed, matching his movements, her warrior's training allowing her to appreciate the skill with which he'd chosen their route. As they reached the cave entrance, concealed behind a frozen waterfall, Thera grabbed Nathan's arm. "Why are you helping me? You could have turned me in, avoided all this danger. Nathan's eyes met hers, and for a moment, the hardened exterior cracked, showing something deeper. Because 20 years ago, someone helped me when they had no reason to. Changed the course of my life. He smiled slightly. Besides, I was getting bored with retirement. Above them, the scout ship's search beams cut through the morning mist, seeking heat signatures that were already fading into the mountain's depths. As Thera followed Nathan into the darkness of the caves, she realized that she, too, had been changed, not by his help, but by his humanity. The proud warrior princess who had crashed to Earth believing humans needed her protection was starting to understand that perhaps, in ways she had never expected, they would end up protecting each other. The cave system was a maze of twisted passages and underground rivers, but Nathan moved through them with unwavering confidence. Their footsteps echoed softly against the stone walls as the dim light from Thera's bioluminescent patterns cast shifting shadows around them. Your patterns, Nathan whispered, checking a marking on the wall. Can you dim them? Thera concentrated, and the gentle glow of her skin faded to almost nothing. They respond to emotion and vital signs. It takes effort to suppress them. She paused, listening to sounds echoing through the caves. 3 hunters. Elite warriors, based on their movement patterns. Nathan pulled out what looked like a primitive paper map, but Thera noticed it was marked with complex notations and symbols. There's an underground lake 2 levels down. The mineral deposits are densest there, it'll completely mask our signatures. A high-pitched whine filled the air, and both of them pressed against the cave wall. Above them, a drone passed by, sleek, black, and distinctly Valerian in design. They've adapted their tech for Earth's atmosphere faster than I expected, Thera muttered. Vrax isn't taking chances. Good thing I don't rely just on chance, Nathan replied, reaching into his pack. He pulled out what looked like small metal spheres. Your people's tech, it relies heavily on quantum sensing, right? Thera's silver eyes widened in surprise. How did you? Later, he cut her off, activating one of the spheres. It emitted a soft pulse that made Thera's skin tingle. The drone above them suddenly spun erratically and crashed into the cave wall, falling uselessly to the ground. Quantum field disruptors, Nathan explained, already moving again. Primitive human technology has its advantages. They descended deeper into the caves, the air growing colder and damper. The sounds of pursuit grew closer. The hunters were good, using the cave acoustics to mask their true position. Nathan led them through a narrow passage that opened into a vast cavern. An underground lake stretched before them, its black surface perfectly still. Wait, Thera grabbed Nathan's arm. Something's wrong. The patterns. She gestured to her skin, which had begun pulsing rapidly. They're reacting to. A blast of energy struck the wall beside them, illuminating the cavern in harsh blue light. 3 figures emerged from different tunnels, Valerian warriors in full combat armor, their weapons trained on the pair. Princess Thera, the lead hunter's voice echoed through the cavern. Your exile ends here. General Vrax sends his regards. Nathan moved with surprising speed, pulling Thera behind a rock formation as more energy blasts filled the air. Those weapons, he called over the noise. They have a cooldown period? 3 seconds between shots, Thera responded, her warrior instincts taking over. But their armor is impenetrable to your projectile weapons. Nathan smiled grimly. Who said anything about shooting them? He pulled out more of the metal spheres, along with what looked like primitive explosives. The lake water is rich in conductive minerals. Your people's armor, it's powered by quantum energy cells, right? Understanding dawned in Thera's silver eyes. The disruption field combined with an electrical surge should create one hell of a feedback loop, Nathan finished. But I'll need you to draw their fire. Think you can handle that, Your Highness? For the first time since crash landing on Earth, Thera felt a genuine smile cross her face. Watch and learn, human. She burst from cover, her body moving in the ancient combat forms of her people. The hunters tracked her movement, their weapons firing in coordinated patterns. But Thera was royalty, trained in combat since birth, and she danced through their fire like lightning through storm clouds. Nathan didn't waste the opportunity. As Thera kept the hunters focused on her, he worked his way around the edge of the lake, planting his devices. The hunters were so focused on their royal quarry that they didn't notice the primitive explosives being set, didn't see the quantum disruptors being activated in a precise pattern. Your father was weak, the lead hunter called out, trying to bait Thera. He couldn't see that the Empire needed strength, Now! Thera shouted. Nathan triggered the explosives. The blast wasn't large, but it sent waves of mineral-rich water cascading over the hunters just as the quantum disruptors activated. The combination of disrupted quantum fields and conducting minerals turned their own armor against them. Lightning-like energy coursed over their suits as their systems overloaded. In seconds, it was over. The mighty Valerian hunters lay unconscious, their advanced armor reduced to useless metal by a combination of human ingenuity and knowledge of basic physics. Thera stood over them, her patterns pulsing with emotion. My father always said that true strength lies not in technology or power, but in wisdom. She looked at Nathan with newfound respect. He would have liked you. Save the compliments, Nathan replied, already gathering his equipment. More will come. We need to move. But there was a hint of pride in his voice, a satisfaction in showing that humanity's primitive methods could overcome even the most advanced alien technology. As they made their way deeper into the caves, leaving their defeated pursuers behind, Thera found herself re-evaluating everything she'd been taught about humans. Their technology might be less advanced, their lives might be shorter, but there was something remarkable about their ability to adapt, to think in ways her people had forgotten. The proud warrior princess who had once laughed at the idea of human protection now found herself grateful for it, and wondering what other surprises this supposedly primitive species might have in store. 2 weeks after the cave battle, Nathan's cabin had become a fortress of both human and alien design. Thera stood at the workbench, her fingers moving deftly as she integrated Valerian technology salvaged from the hunter's equipment with Nathan's primitive devices. Her patterns pulsed steadily in concentration, casting a gentle glow over their work. Your quantum field disruptors were impressive, she admitted, making a final adjustment to what had once been a standard radio transmitter. But with these modifications, we can extend their range tenfold. We'll need it when Vrax arrives. Nathan looked up from cleaning his weapons, studying her with quiet intensity. You're certain he'll come himself? He has to. Thera's patterns flickered with old pain. In Valerian culture, royal blood carries power, both literal and symbolic. As long as I live, his claim to the throne will never be secure. She met Nathan's gaze. He's too proud to let anyone else end my life. Pride seems to be a recurring problem in your culture, Nathan observed, but his tone was gentle. Thera's laugh held a touch of bitterness. Says the man who exiled himself to a mountain rather than accept a medal for whatever classified mission you won't talk about. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken histories. Finally, Nathan set down his weapon and stood, moving to the window. The mountain sunset painted the snow in shades of amber and rose, a beauty that still caught Thera's breath despite everything. It was a rescue mission, he said quietly. Deep in territory we weren't supposed to be in. Found something we weren't supposed to find. My team. He paused, his shoulders tense. I was the only one who made it out. They wanted to pin medals on me, call me a hero. Couldn't stomach it. Thera moved to stand beside him, her presence offering silent support. In my culture, we believe that surviving when others fall creates a debt of honor. Each breath we take must give meaning to those who no longer breathe. Is that what this is about? Nathan turned to face her. Giving meaning to your father's death? No, Thera replied, her silver eyes intense. It's about preventing more deaths. Vrax won't stop with my world. He believes in Valerian supremacy above all else. Earth, with its primitive technology, would be one of his first targets. Nathan's hand moved unconsciously to touch her arm, where her patterns swirled in response to his proximity. The gesture was becoming familiar, comfortable in a way that should have alarmed them both. You could have run, he said softly. Found another planet, hidden away. Why stay and fight? Because you showed me something I never expected to find on Earth. Thera's voice was equally soft. Hope. Your people, with all their limitations, refuse to accept them as final. You take what you have and make it more than it should be. You see obstacles as challenges to overcome rather than absolute barriers. A warning signal from their modified sensors interrupted the moment. Nathan moved quickly to the equipment, checking readings. Large quantum signature entering the atmosphere. Multiple ships. Vrax, Thera confirmed, her warrior's stance returning. He's brought a battle fleet. She hesitated, then added, Nathan, you don't have to. If you say I don't have to fight, I'm going to be very disappointed in you, he cut her off with a slight smile. I thought you were starting to understand humans better than that. Their eyes met, and suddenly the space between them seemed charged with more than just battle preparation. Thera moved closer, her patterns creating dancing lights across Nathan's features. Understanding humans is one thing, she whispered. Understanding this connection between us is another matter entirely. Nathan's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb tracing one of her luminescent patterns. Maybe some things don't need to be understood. Just felt. The kiss that followed was gentle, a moment of warmth before the storm. When they parted, Thera's patterns were pulsing with an intensity Nathan had never seen before. If we survive this, she said, her voice slightly unsteady, we'll have to figure out what this means. A human and a Valerian princess. First time for everything, Nathan replied, already moving to gather their weapons. But let's focus on surviving. Your people have any saying about romance in the middle of a war? Thera picked up her modified quantum rifle, a smile playing at her lips. Actually, we have several. Most of them are quite explicit about it being an excellent motivation for victory. As they made their final preparations, the night sky above began to fill with the lights of approaching Valerian ships. But for perhaps the first time since her crash landing, Thera felt truly confident. She had something now that Vrax could never understand, not just a skilled ally, but a partner who represented everything that made humanity dangerous: adaptability, ingenuity, and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. The storm was breaking over the mountain, but they would face it together, human and Valerian, proving that the greatest strength comes not from technology or tradition, but from the bonds forged between kindred spirits, no matter how different their origins. The mountain air crackled with energy as Vrax's fleet descended through the clouds. 7 ships, their hulls gleaming with the distinctive iridescent metal of Valerian warcraft, took position around the peak. The largest vessel, bearing the imperial insignia, hovered directly above Nathan's cabin. Your general has a flair for dramatic entrances, Nathan observed, checking their modified equipment one final time. The quantum disruptors were positioned strategically around the property, disguised by the snow. He was always theatrical, Thera replied, her patterns pulsing with battle-ready intensity. It's why he never understood true strength. He mistakes fear for respect. A beam of light shot down from the command ship, materializing into a tall figure in ornate battle armor. General Vrax cut an imposing figure, his own luminescent patterns burning with an almost feverish intensity. 2 elite guards materialized beside him. Princess Thera, his voice boomed across the snow-covered ground. Still hiding behind primitives, I see. Your father would be ashamed. Thera stepped out of the cabin, her head held high. The royal blood in her veins made her patterns shine with ancestral power. My father would be ashamed that his most trusted general turned out to be a coward who could only seize power through treachery. Vraxa's patterns flashed with rage. I brought the fleet to give you an honorable death. But perhaps I'll reduce this mountain to ash instead, let you watch your human pet burn before. A quantum disruption field suddenly activated, causing the guard's armor to spark and malfunction. They dropped to their knees, their advanced systems overloaded by the primitive technology. You talk too much, Nathan called out, emerging from his hidden position with his modified weapon. That's the problem with you advanced types. Always have to give a speech. Vrax roared in fury, drawing his ceremonial blade, a weapon that crackled with energy. You dare! He charged forward, his speed enhanced by his armor's systems. But Nathan and Thera had planned for this. They moved in perfect synchronization, having spent weeks practicing this dance. As Vrax swung his blade at Nathan, Thera attacked from the other side. Her intimate knowledge of Valerian combat forms matched with Nathan's unpredictable human tactics created a combination Vrax had never encountered. Above them, the fleet opened fire, but the modified quantum disruptors created a field that scattered their energy weapons. The mountain itself seemed to fight with them, as strategically placed charges triggered avalanches that forced the ships to constantly adjust their positions. Your weakness is your pride, Vrax, Thera called out as she parried one of his strikes. You never bothered to truly study humans. To understand them. You saw their technology and dismissed them. Because they are nothing. Vrax snarled, his blade cutting through the air where Nathan had been a moment before. Barely more than animals. Animals who figured out how to disable your fancy armor, Nathan interrupted, triggering another disruptor that caused Vrax's systems to fluctuate. The general stumbled, his enhanced speed faltering. Thera pressed the advantage, centuries of royal combat training flowing through her movements. They taught me something you never learned, Vrax. True power isn't about domination. It's about adaptation. Growth. Connection. Her patterns blazed with unprecedented brightness as she landed a decisive blow, cracking Vrax's armor. Nathan's modified weapon fired, the blast amplified by the quantum disruption field, and the mighty general fell to his knees. Impossible, Vrax gasped, his own patterns dimming. You've corrupted the royal bloodline with human weakness. No, Thera said, standing over him with her weapon ready. I've strengthened it with human ingenuity. She looked to the fleet above. Your general is defeated. By royal combat law, his claims are forfeit. Stand down, or learn firsthand what humans can do when pushed too far. There was a tense moment as the ships held position. Then, one by one, they powered down their weapons. Among the Valerian military, the sight of their princess's patterns blazing with such power, standing victorious alongside a human warrior, was too significant to ignore. As Valerian peacekeepers materialized to take Vrax into custody, Thera turned to Nathan. Her patterns had settled into a gentle, intimate glow. I have to return, she said softly. My people need guidance to move past Vrax's ideology. But... She stepped closer, her hand finding his. I think it's time the Valerian Empire had an ambassador to Earth. Someone who understands both worlds. Nathan pulled her close, smiling. Sounds like a job that might require local assistance. Some primitive human to help navigate Earth's customs. I was thinking more of a partnership, Thera replied, her silver eyes shining. After all, we've proven that humans and Valorians can accomplish amazing things together. As the sun rose over the mountain, casting golden light across the snow, Thera and Nathan stood united, a symbol of what could be achieved when pride gave way to understanding, when advanced civilizations learned that progress wasn't just about technology, but about the heart and spirit that drove it. The warrior princess who had crashed to Earth believing humans beneath her protection had found something far more valuable, a partner who had helped her become stronger by showing her a different kind of strength. And the human who had hidden from his past had found a future he never could have imagined, proving that sometimes the greatest adventures come disguised as crashes in the night.